Hello, everyone. I have been paying attention to the guides, wikis, and all of that. In those builds, guides, and certain wiki pages, I feel like there's some things that aren't being mentioned that should be mentioned. I'll do my best to give you the short explanation to those things in the hopes that it will help you with your uh, build or play of the game. Okay, let me start with weapon reach. There's not a defined number as far as I'm aware in terms of weapon reach. What I mean is this: it's impossible to tell how much of a difference in reach there is between a great spear and a normal spear, or a great spear versus a halberd. It's one of those things you just have to visualize, I guess, but there's no number to let me know what the reach is of the particular weapons as far as I'm able to tell at this time. Maybe as the weeks go on, somebody will find a way to figure out that particular number. The only number that's set in stone in terms of reach, as far as I'm able to tell, of course, is the bows, greatbows, crossbows, and things of the nature. The one thing that I won't understand is why crossbows have less range than bows. So I guess whatever, but that's just how it is. It's a factor of 8 range on the numbering side, so it's 42 versus 50. Let me go and pull up the longbow to show you that. There you go. RNG is 50. Now, let me talk about why weapon reach is important. Weapon reach is important for not just mounted combat, but also combat in general. You will find that it's a lot easier to land hits with a spear or great spear in comparison to, say, a sword. Because I don't know the numbers of the reach, I'm just going to give you a rough numbering system to picture this. If it was a number between 1 and 4, I would say swords are 1, spears are probably a 2 to 3, and great spears are 3 to 4. Until those numbers are known, that would be kind of my rough estimate of where things are. So, yeah, if you really want to make sure you land your hits not just in mounted combat, but also in normal combat, just use a spear. Seriously. I know everybody's got the habit of using swords because of Dark Souls or, another game that they've come from to Elden Ring, but I'm telling you right now, spears will make your life so much easier, and I have no idea why they're not more common. Same with bows. You can absolutely cheese the crap out of bosses with bows. I can guarantee you that much. But next thing I need to cover is weapon damage types. While we're on the subject of weapon reach, let's talk about the types. I have to tab over. Okay. There are a ton of different categories of weapons, as you probably figured out. As far as I know, it's only the hammers, great hammers, and some of the more unique weapons that have a weapon damage category called strike. You'll notice that spears are exclusive to piercing. Some of the other weapon types have their own damage types as well, but the reason strike is important is because strike damage specifically is great against armored enemies or enemies that are rock-like, so golems, for example. You'll notice that you will do a lot more damage against a armored or rock-type enemy using a hammer or great hammer versus, say, using a spear. So while I do think spears are the best weapon for a multitude of reasons, I understand that you do need to diversify a little bit. If you are able to diversify even a little bit, you'll find that your combat will be a lot easier. That brings me into the next category that I need to talk about, and that is going to be resources. Another thing that you'll quickly discover is that each weapon has different resources associated with its upgrades in some capacity or another. Well, upgrades or improvements. I'm not sure what the correct wording is here. But either way, you'll notice that they have different resources. So, in the interest of diversifying, I would say to use maybe, I guess you can say, a quote-unquote cheap weapon for strike damage, because you're probably not going to use it all that often in comparison to whatever weapon it is that you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with a spear and you're using some other weapon, I guess fine, if that's what's working for you. But if you're using any number of weapons, make sure that you have at least one that you're comfortable with and favor for the most part in combat, but at least have one strike weapon ready so that if you are up against armored or rock-like enemies, then you're more than capable of doing that. I pulled up the Morningstar for this reason. Not all weapons are known right now, but I am at least aware the Morningstar is fairly easy to get. It's not an expensive item in terms of upgrading it, and it has strike damage along with bleed build up. So I do think the Morningstar is a good hammer to be using with shields as part of this whole diversifying thing. Let me go ahead and move into shields now on that note. Okay, all shields have a bunch of different stats associated with them, but the most important, in my opinion, is going to be boost guard, or guard boost. I forget. It's worded one of two ways, and I just don't remember which one's correct. But either way, that particular stat, the higher the number, the lower the cost is to block. So you want to get as high as you can so that your stamina is not getting drained as much when blocking. For that reason, I brought up the brass shield. As far as I'm able to tell from in-game information as well as Extra Life information, this happens to strike a really good balance between the boost guard stats, weight, and of course all the resistances. You'll notice that its boost guard is 56. It's an extremely high number, and I've only noticed this with two other shields. The other two being great shields, so their weight's going to be a lot higher than the brass shield. In addition to this, the brass shield is an early acquiring item. Like, you can get this pretty much near the start. So I would say if you're doing a shield build, and more than likely you will be, and I'll get into that in a second, I would say brass shield is probably a really good reference point in terms of what stats to look for. So if you don't like the brass shield, just try to keep in mind that that boost number is 56. So use that as a reference point. Okay, let me talk about another topic related to shield, the Ashes of War. I have to tab over. Okay, I've seen tons of YouTube videos regarding the Barricade Shield Ashen of War, or Ash of War, I'm sorry. A lot of the YouTube videos that are showcasing this or discussing it seem to indicate that this is going to be the no-hit run go-to in the near future. I'm not a person to do no-hit runs, so all I can say is that would sound plausible, but there is an alternative to it, and I just want to quickly point it out because I think that if people can work this in the build, it could potentially open up different options. So let me tab over. Val the Indomitable. It's a faith-based Ash of War that makes you invulnerable. There's a big difference between Barricade Shield and this particular Ash of War. That's going to be in how things are handled. So the barrier thing makes really blocking super cheap, which is fine and all. However, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to go on the offensive with that in comparison to this particular Ash of War. Because it's making you invulnerable, now you don't worry about blocking. You just go and smash face, and then when this runs out, you immediately go back to blocking. that's one way of handling it, anyways. Or a way to think of it, I should say. You can certainly do the other one if you want to, but I'm just saying that I think this is a perfectly good alternative that's not really getting mentioned in these guides or other things. But moving on. Um, I just want to talk about ammo count now. A while back, I was mentioning weapon reach, and I think I did mention that you can absolutely cheese the crap out of bosses with bows, and it's 100% true. I've seen YouTube videos of people literally just bowing down entire bosses. Sure, it takes a while and quite a bit of ammunition, but it can be done. So yes, a bow build is very, very possible in Elden Ring. But which ones are the most viable is another matter. That's because they're entirely reliant on ammunition count. This is just based on what I've been able to see myself. I haven't seen any guides regarding bows, so all I can do is just base my uh, observations on what I've seen. That said, I have never had trouble finding normal arrows. Bolts seem to be somewhat common, but not as common as arrows. And then, of course, great arrows are the rarest, is at least what I have seen. I don't know if it's maybe because where I am in the world that I'm not seeing them, or maybe I'm just not looking at the correct merchants or things like that. I don't know if those are factors. I will be 100% honest about that. All I'm saying, though, is that as far as where I am now, I've seen more arrows than bolts, and more bolts than great arrows. So, that said, that's perfectly fine because, as mentioned, bows do have a better reach than the crossbows by a factor of about 8 range. 8 range makes a pretty big difference if you're cheesing the crap out of a boss, I can tell you that much. So yeah, I think that if a bow build's going to be done, it's probably going to be, well, I should say a range build. If a range build is going to be done, I think it's going to have to be done with bows due to their ammunition count. I think that's just the way things are going to go. Oh, you know what? Let me just deviate real quickly into the no-hit runs. Now, like I mentioned not too long ago, I don't do no-hit runs, so I'm by no means an expert. However, I can make an educated guess on what would probably be best. I've mentioned that there's 2 Ashes of War you can use to avoid damage, but I think a truly successful build for a no-hit run, based on all the information that I have available to me, is going to be one that's using bows and shields. So alternating between bow combat and then melee combat using a shield and whatever weapon that person's comfortable with. I think that if people can get comfortable with a spear, then that would be ideal for the no-hit run, going in between shield and spear to bow combat. I think that would probably be the most successful no-hit run build, or approach, I should say. People are welcome to disagree with me on that if you want to, but that's just my observation based on the information available to me. For now, that's all I have. I hope this information helped. If not, feel free to post in the comments to ask questions, or just go to the Vextra Life wiki. That would be another great place to look. Vextra Life does a great job of posting information. Right now, there's not much information in comparison to other games that they've made wikis for, but it's still a start. If Vextra Life doesn't have it, check YouTube. There are probably plenty of people who've made videos on whatever it is you seek, or just do a Google search. But anyways, thanks for listening.